A judge has ruled that criticizing Islam or viewing the faith as problematic is a protected belief under equalities law, as one individual found out going through a tribunal process which initially found against him. Also in this video, another migrant who has been sent back to France has made his way back to the UK again. We'll deal with what happened there and an update on the latest illegal arrivals in the UK. Also in this video, the International Olympic Committee may be moving towards banning transgender women from the women's category. And also, was it an error of judgment or was it a deliberate deceit by the BBC when it aired the Panorama programme, which made it look like President Trump had incited the riots at Capitol Hill? Each of those we'll deal with in this video. Moving in no particular order, first of all, to the judge ruling that criticizing Islam or viewing the faith in a problematic way is a protected belief. What does this mean? Well, it means that if you are treated unfairly because of criticizing Islam or viewing the faith as problematic, then you may have a claim and you may be protected under the Equality Act, because if that is a fundamental philosophically protected belief, just like beliefs about sex and transgenderism and so on, then that will be a protected belief. It was initially a decision by the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries where there was a series of posts. Now, the posts themselves haven't been adjudicated upon just yet, just that initially he was barred from the profession for several tweets and then ordered to pay costs of almost £23,000. Now, this has now been to the first stage of a tribunal, but although it's not an appeals tribunal, so its findings won't necessarily be binding on other tribunals, they will certainly be persuasive for any other tribunal that comes to hear a case that is broadly similar. And in this case, the tribunal will go on to consider the individual posts and whether those posts amounted to an appropriate manifestation of those beliefs. You can read more about this in the Telegraph article, which I'll link below, where he says that he's speaking up about the sorts of things that many people in the country are concerned with, and he said it's wrong, as we saw in the Rotherham grooming gang scandal, for people to keep quiet, because that actually costs lives. So at this first stage, a judge has ruled that it is a fundamental philosophically protected belief, which may amount to discrimination if someone is treated less favourably because of those beliefs. But as I say, the tribunal will go on to consider the specific individual tweets which so far have been indicated to have been acceptable. Moving on, it looks increasingly likely that the International Olympic Committee is going to ban trans women from the women's category on the basis that they are biologically male, and perhaps favour a blanket ban, which would include those with DSD, differences in sexual development. One such case was argued with Imani Khalif, who is understood to be an individual, a male individual with DSD characteristics, and thus should not have been competing in the women's category. I did several videos about that before. And the relatively new president, Kirsty Coventry, indicated that she preferred a blanket ban of trans women and those with DSD from women's categories for that reason, in that it would be unfair to women in that category if they have biologically male athletes competing in that category. As somebody said on X today, this shouldn't make headlines, but here we are, and it does. And this is an issue that I firmly believe in, because this is prevalent in many different areas with the use of language. What's acceptable, what is not acceptable? Do we just change language and change the way we behave and change sporting categories and all of these sort of things because a mere few have gender dysphoria and don't identify with the body into which they were born and therefore want to compete in a different category and so on? I think we should all stick to facts and biological facts, and at the very, very least, now that we've had it, the Supreme Court ruling, which made absolutely clear that sex is based on biology. Now, with all the talk of digital ID recently and the information that companies store on you, a lot of people are looking to try to erase themselves from the internet. Because if you think about how much information companies store on you, and they even share and sell it onto other parties, far more than you might expect. They store and share financial information, health information, even information about your religious beliefs, not to mention your date of birth, your email address, your ethnicity, any political affiliations which might be of concern to you, how many children you have, where you shop, where you live, your education, all of these kind of things may all be stored on a profile that they might then sell on to other people. So a lot of people are naturally looking to try to erase that from the internet. And if you were to try to do that yourself, it might take you hours and hours if at all successful, in contacting companies to remove your information from their servers. And so that is why I've chosen to partner with Incogni on this channel, which is set up specifically to erase this information of yours from the internet from these companies. They are set up using UK law and US law under data protection legislation to contact these companies and insist and require that they remove your information from their servers, helping you to disappear from the internet. Because as they say, they cannot harm you if they cannot find you. And so if digital ID is eventually initiated and there's other information about you on the internet, all of which can be pieced together, this will help you to minimize the impact and the damage that this might have to you. And of course, as a partner to my channel here, I get you a great discount, which is 60% off, 60% off the annual plan using my code BlackBelt at the link in the description below. It is a simple done-for-you service. You get access to a dashboard and you'll see just how many companies are removing your information from their servers, giving you that peace of mind knowing that you are being erased from the internet. So Incogni will help you to disappear and stop them from being able to harm you. Moving to the BBC case, if you caught my previous video, the Panorama program, which was aired the week before the presidential election, was edited in such a way that viewers would have believed that Donald Trump had incited the riots at Capitol Hill. That was not the case. In fact, the two segments that were spliced together were almost an hour apart. But when you splice those two together, obviously it creates a new sentence. Now this is very basic and rudimentary editing. If you take two different clips from an hour apart and you put them together, it makes a new sentence with a new meaning. It is very difficult to believe that this was not done deliberately. They say it was an error of judgment, but I struggle to believe how that was not done deliberately when it is quite clear that it makes a new sentence, and it certainly makes it appear that President Trump was inciting those riots at Capitol Hill, when of course he wasn't. Now that I've seen both ends of the clip, the first bit and the second bit, an hour apart, it's very clear that neither of them say that sentence, and he never said it. Now, the chair of the BBC, Samir Shah, has apologized for an error of judgment in how the documentary edited the speech of President Trump. He says that he insists that they didn't sweep it under the carpet. He said because it was public and the criticism was public, but he does say that they should have acted some time ago, which some people may feel that that was in some way trying to ignore the issue and hoping that it goes away. But obviously it hasn't gone away because President Trump has now threatened the BBC with a lawsuit, which resulted, of course, as you've probably heard, in the resignations of Director General Tim Davie and CEO of News Deborah Turnes, both of whom resigned over the leaked memo criticising the Panorama programme. But now onto the issue of illegal migrants. We get somewhat embarrassing posts like this now and again. This one from Oliver Ryan, MP of Labour. Stop the boats. Obviously bragging in that post there that there were 0 boat crossings and 0 migrants arrived between the 23rd and the 29th of October. However, many people commented that that was mainly because of a storm. And it seems that that was right, because now that those seem to have subsided somewhat, we've had, let's count them, 2,121 migrants arrive in 4 days. Over 2,000 migrants arrived in 4 days. And the reason that is so bad is we now have reports that one of them that had been sent back in this one in, one out deal, net zero returns with France, that another one has come back. And number 10 says that they will return him again as soon as possible. They say anyone looking to return to the UK after being removed will be wasting their time and money, and it would seem the taxpayers' time and money, because we're sending them back to France again. They say the message is clear. If you try to return to the UK, you'll be sent back. We'll do whatever it takes to scale up the removals of illegal migrants and secure our borders. Although secure, our borders most certainly are not, because, as I say, over 2,000 arrived in 4 days. This has obviously raised significant criticism of the whole scheme and the whole programme. They claim, of course, that this proves that the system is working because of the biometric checks they've introduced to spot people crossing for a second time. That is, if they do these biometric checks on every single one of the thousands that arrive and detect that one of them has been sent back to France and therefore has come back on a boat. So, of course, this has been met with criticism. Kemi Badenoch says, rinse, repeat, chaos. She says, only the Conservatives have a plan to deport every illegal migrant and secure our borders. Not sure that's true because I'm sure Reform have their own plans for it as well. One thing does strike me, however, as British citizens is that we all deserve to be told the truth. We all deserve a solid plan. We deserve that they will stick to it. Just like Labour's promises that they will not increase income tax, national insurance, VAT, and any other taxes on individual working people, which to me includes anybody that goes out to work every day, regardless of how much they earn. They are still working people. We are still going out to work. And those promises should be upheld. In any other situation, in any other company, in any other investigation or analysis, making a promise and then going back on that promise after you've gained something from it would be considered fraud. Now, for reasons I've explained in previous videos, MPs, politicians, even parties breaking their promise doesn't amount to fraud because the law says they can change their plans as they go along. So effectively, they can make a plan to you in their manifesto. They can promise to do a thing so they get elected and then do exactly the opposite. And there's not a lot we can do about it. I think that is a flawed system, frankly. I think there's a lot of things about the whole of the system in the UK at the moment which are flawed. I think a lot of the court system is flawed in a lot of ways. I can tell you a personal story. We're dealing with an appeal at the moment. So we have a case. Let's just say that it was an inconsistent decision from a deputy district judge. A deputy district judge is one who sits part-time and not a full-time salaried judge. We have what I would consider an inconsistent decision. Inconsistent in that the judge applied case law in a way that really doesn't apply to this case. So obviously we're appealing the case. Now, ordinarily, to make an appeal, you really ought to have the transcript of the judgment. So you know exactly what the judge said, so you can refer to it, say why it's wrong, and so on. Unless, of course, you had a barrister there who made an extempore note of the judgment, so you can actually refer to what the judge said, even if it's not word for word, it's still enough of the gist of it. But how do you get the transcript? Well, you have to fill in a form and send it to the court, indicate which company you'd like to do the transcript. There's only a set number of companies that will do it. They are then supposed to send the recording of the hearing to the transcript company, who you can request a quote before they do it, or you can just tell them to get on with it. 1 day's worth of transcript might be in the region of £600 to £1,000, for example. 30 minutes to an hour might be more in the region of £100 to £200. But you send it off and you wait. Now, for us, it's been well over a week and we've heard nothing about that yet. We had to call the court to get a copy of the judgment because it didn't come through the post. So we got an emailed copy of the judgment. The judgment itself referred to another party. It referred to a bank when it wasn't a bank part of the case. It also referred to a different judge than one who actually heard the hearing. So we had to correct that, and we've yet to hear any response about the corrections about that judgment. So nonetheless, we've just sent in the appeal regardless, and still yet to get any confirmation of receipt at all. And this, I'm afraid to say, is fairly normal. There are many cases where we just don't receive a copy of the judgment, or it goes somewhere else, or we've received someone else's judgment, or there's the wrong party named in a judgment, or things like that. And ultimately, we just have to go through the process, do the best with what we can, persevere, try to get things sorted out. But it does take a long time. So in my view, many of these systems just don't really work the way they should work. So I do look at these things with a degree of skepticism, having been involved in it for so long. Let me know what you think in the comments about any of the above. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.